Sammy says that the secret ingredient of Van Halen is your vocals.
Is my vocals?
Says you are the vocal sound.
Well, I don't know. I'll tell
Just
you,
accept it graciously.
I'll tell you that when I first joined Van Halen, part of the reason was I had been lead singing in bands that I've been in, and I was thinking, well, Ed sings and Al even sings background, and I'll just play bass, you know, and that'll be great. And then all of a sudden I started singing again. I mean, I've never had any vocal training or anything, but that's very nice of him to say. I just get out there and I yodel how I know how. I yodel how I know how, and I guess that's high, so.
Because the group has interesting vocals, and
yeah,
I don't think people mention it.
You know, Sammy, he sings a lot of interesting things, which lends itself a lot of times for some really interesting harmonies. And plus, with his range, a lot of times I'm like doing this after a few takes in the studio, you know.
Does he ever tell you what the songs are about? Like,
oh yeah, he'll a lot of times he'll hear something like Ed's playing, and it invokes something, right? You know, he'll go, yeah, that sounds like pound cake, you know. And
that's all he has to say, probably.
Exactly, you know. And nobody has to really search. Nobody has to open up encyclopedias for any of the meanings to what he writes. You know, and that's what's great too, because everybody can relate really good to what he.
Yeah. You had some sort of promotional deal with Jack Daniels, right? You had a Jack Daniels bass. That's still a thing.
That'll haunt me forever. See, what happens is
it's a passing youthful thing.
It was well, yes, it was. I fancy a little nip of Jack Daniels every now and then. And the whole thing led to the building of this Jack Daniels bass that I had, because everybody ribbed me about it so much. He said, "Haha, you ought to build a bass that looks like a Jack Daniels bass guitar." I go, "Yeah, right, okay." So I did it, and it was just like a little novelty thing. Yeah. But the bass sounded halfway decent, and I ended up using it for a few songs in the show. And once the Jack Daniels people caught wind of what I was doing, I thought I was going to be sued. No, actually, I built another Jack Daniels bass, a second one, because the first one I thrashed real bad the first year that I had it. I think it was back in 1984. And they became kind of interested, and they asked if they could do the graphics for it, for the new bass. And I'm all, yeah, sure, you know, because at that point I was just like, you know, Jack Daniels was like, you know, I'm a Tennessee Squire. I'm in that little elite group of people that own a little patch of land about this big at the distillery, you know, and every month I get a letter going, Mr. Anthony, you better mow the weeds on your plot of land.
Have you visited this little plot?
Yeah, I've been to this distillery. I've taken the tour. In fact, the tour is great if you're ever down that way towards Lynchburg to take it. But anyway, they send us graphics to do the other bass, and in turn they wanted a picture of the bass and me to hang in their Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Down there at the distillery.
So this is an ongoing relationship.
Yeah, well, I still take a little nip of Jack Daniels every now and then, but, you know, I've kind of backed off on the gas just a little bit. I had a few more years to my life.
Do you ever sit down and listen to the records? I mean, like from the old days, like the first one, and notice like how we've improved? Or
sometimes I'll do a lot of times when people come over, friends come over, and they'll all be going, a lot of times they want to listen to our old albums. Someone else suggests it. They'll go, hey, Mike, let's listen to your first album or your second album, or let's watch your first video that you guys ever did. And that's when I really go, oh, my God. But, you know, and this...
Why do you say that? Was it a bad video?
Because, you know, back then I remember doing our first video of You Really Got Me. I think we did it over at the Whiskey out in Hollywood. And Ed and I, you know, we're doing all this stuff. And then after the solo kicks in, we're all going, you know, and it's like, oh, I used to do that? Oh, jeez. It must have been the alcohol. No, I'm just kidding. But, no, every now and then I put on one of our, you know, I'll play the first album or the second album. Yeah. I'll put, you know, the second album on, or Fair Warning, which is one of my favorite albums of the old band era, or whatever, you know. Turn it up real loud so it upsets my wife, and I sit back and just go, yeah!
Are bass players born as opposed to made? I mean, do you have to be born a bass player? You're not just a failed guitarist, you're a bass player.
Right. I think you have to be born, because you're either born a bass player or you're a failed guitarist trying to play guitar on a bass. I don't know. Plus the fact that when I first started playing, everybody wanted to play guitar, you know? And
A bass player can be a popular guy.
I said, yeah, you know, I didn't have very many problems finding bands in the early days to play with, you know. The problem was keeping the guitars from flaking out, you know. I'd be going from one band to the other. But I don't know, it's just, you know, I like being part of that, the foundation. That's just like, just as important just to have the groove being locked in there, you know. And when I get up there on stage and I got all this stuff blowing behind me and I'm sitting there right on that one note and everything's shaking and my fillings are getting ready to fall out, I'm going, yeah, I like this. I like playing this instrument.
Here we go round.